Hi guys. I'm going to finish, well, I don't know if I'll finish it, but I'm going to read some more of Baba Berenstein to you this morning. How are you guys doing? How's school going, Isaiah and Seth? How about you, Eli and Thad? Are you guys getting far down the road in your schoolwork? Bet you'd be glad when summer comes again, right? Yeah, me too. Winter's not fun. Up here, at least, it's not fun anyway. So, but God is good, and He loves us all. And Nana and Papa love you guys too. So we're back to Ali Baba, and he meets Santa Claus. Now remember that Santa Claus bought them both hot chocolate, and they were sitting at the lunch counter with him, and he was talking to them. They think this is Santa Claus. Do you think this is Santa Claus? Well, Ali Baba said he had an important question to ask you, Natalie, and as she looked up from her hot chocolate, there was a mustache of dark brown across the top of her lip. Well, what is it? Santa Claus asked Ali Baba, and Ali Baba blushed a deep red. He wanted to ask his question, but he didn't want to seem rude. Go on, said Natalie, giving Ali Baba a nudge. This may be your only chance. Well, you see, it's like this, said Ali Baba. You see, I'm Jewish, and I wondered if you ever thought about bringing presents to Jewish kids on Christmas. It doesn't seem fair otherwise, said Natalie. Have you asked your parents about this? Said Santa Claus. Sure, they explained that Christmas is a Christian holiday, and I understand that part, but still I thought I should ask you now that I've met you in person. Don't you ever have any leftover things? Tell me, said Santa Claus, do you ever get any other kinds of presents instead of Christmas ones? Well, oh sure, said Ali Baba, and then he listed for Santa Claus, just as he had earlier for Natalie, all the types of gifts that he received over the year. Well, young man, he said, it certainly doesn't seem or sound as if you're being deprived. So I think you'll understand when I say that after all the Christmas presents are distributed every year, it always seems important to give those left over to children who wouldn't get anything from anyone else. You mean like orphans? That's right. Orphans or children in hospitals. Children who need presents because they don't have the things you already have. I don't mean things like games and toys, but things like loving parents and good health and a promising future ahead of you. Those are the most important things in the world, Santa Claus explained. They aren't the kind of things that I'm able to give away. He paused for a moment and he said, I wish I could. But you bring presents to Natalie, said Ali Baba. She has loving parents and good health. He didn't want to seem greedy, but he did want to clarify the situation once and for all. It's like this, said Santa Claus, looking a little uncomfortable. My assignment is to distribute presents to the children who celebrate Christmas. I was assured that you would get gifts from other sources, and from what you tell me, that's exactly how it is. So in the end, you both have happy holiday season. You understand, don't you? Ali Baba nodded his head. Do you have any message for the other kids that you want us to pass along? We're not supposed to say we met him, Natalie reminded Ali Baba. Good, right, said the man, but you can just set a good example by being friends, by being nice to other people, by caring. Sam Cooperman, a voice called out. What a surprise to see you here. A woman entering the luncheonette walked over to them and began talking to Santa Claus. I was going to phone you, she said. Paul and I want to invite you over for dinner. She looked at Ali Baba and Natalie. My goodness, are these your grandchildren? She asked. These are some young friends of mine, said Santa Claus. We have to go now, said Ali Baba, getting off his stool. He pulled at Natalie, who was busy tearing her napkin into strips. Ali Baba watched as Santa Claus held out his hand and took Natalie's small hand in his. In case I don't get to see you again, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, said Natalie, and she stood still for a second, then impulsively put her arms around Santa Claus and gave him a great big kiss. Ali Baba didn't plan to kiss Santa Claus, but he held out his hand to shake with him, and as a man-to-man would do. It's very nice meeting you, he said politely. It was my pleasure, said Santa Claus. And thank you so much for the hot chocolate, Ali Baba remembered to add at the last minute. Santa Claus gestured to Ali Baba to come closer. He leaned over and whispered something in his ear. Ali Baba nodded his head and grinned. The woman sat down on the stool that Natalie had vacated. So tell me, what are you doing now? Ali Baba stood for a minute listening. When I finish my coffee, I'm going to the barber shop, Santa Claus told his friend. Ali Baba was just about to protest that he'd just come from the barber shop when Santa Claus made another statement. I've decided it's time to shave off my beard. For goodness sakes, after all these years, why are you doing that? Asked the woman. He said, too many people seem to recognize me these days, and at that moment, both Ali Baba and Natalie Gomez noticed the famous twinkle in Santa Claus's eye. Did you hear that woman call him Sam Cooperman? Said Natalie all of a sudden as they walked down the street. Maybe he wasn't Santa Claus at all. Don't be silly, said Ali Baba. He had to have an alias, doesn't he? And he even kept the right initials, SC. Believe me, we just had hot chocolate with Santa Claus. Well, too bad we can't tell anybody about it, Natalie sighed, convinced again. At least we were there together, said Ali Baba, and you can always talk about it to me. Or I can talk about it with you. What did he whisper to you? Is it a secret? I can tell you, said Ali Baba. He said, Happy Hanukkah. Ali Baba is on his own. Chapter 5. When Ali Baba Berenstein was 9 years, 7 months, and 24 days old, he had a runny nose and a tickle in his throat. It was not a serious illness, but since it was a cold, damp day outside, Mrs. Berenstein felt strongly that her son shouldn't go to school. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, she reminded him. I like a pound of salami and an ounce of mustard, said Ali Baba. He was not very sick at all, but he rather thought it would be fun to stay home on this ordinary Thursday. His teacher, Miss Melrose, had been absent for the past 2 days herself, and Ali Baba didn't really like the teacher who'd been called in to substitute. I don't have any salami, but you can have a frankfurter for lunch. That's a hot dog. It's too early to be talking about lunch, said Mrs. Berenstein as she finished his breakfast. Mr. Berenstein, as he finished his breakfast before leaving for work, drink a lot of liquids, he told his son. Drink tea with lemon, and honey is good when you have a cold. After Mr. Berenstein left for his office, Ali Baba's mother went to the phone. I'm going to ask Grandma to come and stay with you for a couple of days, she explained to her son. Today is the day I'm scheduled to meet with the district supervisor of the Board of Education. The Parent-Teacher Association has been trying to set this meeting up for weeks, and I don't want to miss it. Ali Baba nodded. His mom was on the executive board of the PTA, which is the Parent-Teacher Association, and she was going to be the group's president. Unfortunately, it turned out that Ali Baba and Mrs. Melrose were not the only people who were ill that day. Both of Ali Baba's grandparents seemed to have colds, too. Whenever his parents went out at night, Elliot, a high school student who lived in their building, stayed with Ali Baba. But on a Thursday morning, Elliot was off at school. There must be somebody who can stay with you, she said as she turned the pages in her address book. I can stay by myself. I'm not a baby anymore, protests Ali Baba between sneezes. He liked the idea of being in charge of himself, like a grown-up. Mrs. Berenstein was not convinced, but she couldn't find a substitute babysitter, and she didn't want to miss her special meeting. All right, she agreed at last, reluctantly. I won't be gone very long. 2 hours at the most. Hey, protested Ali Baba, I'm almost 10 years old. I can be on my own without any problem. I'm not a baby. Mrs. Berenstein showed Ali Baba where the package of frankfurters was in the refrigerator. Just put one in a pot and cover it with water, she instructed him. When the water boils, you know the frankfurt is ready. Sure, said Ali Baba. He was lucky that they had an electric stove. His friend Roger could never do any cooking unless his parents were around to watch because they had a gas stove. And so there was a real flame under the cooking pots, and they thought a real flame was too dangerous. Ali Baba knew his parents would think so too. I'll phone Mr. Salmon and tell him that you're here on your own, said Mrs. Berenstein. You can call him if you need anything. Ali Baba had gone running in the park quite regularly with Mr. Salmon, and the two had become good friends. He was almost as proud as his neighbor at all the weight the man had lost recently, but still he knew he couldn't phone him today. He liked the idea of taking care of himself. After his mother left, Ali Baba went to the bedroom and sat down on his bed. He was going to read his library book, but as he sat there looking around, he got an idea. His bedroom was a boring place. His bed had been against the same wall for as long as he could remember. It was across from his bookcase and chest of drawers. Ali Baba thought he would like to arrange the furniture. Wouldn't his mother be surprised when she came home and found he'd shifted all the furniture? Ali Baba got off the bed and began to move it across the room. Well, it wasn't too heavy, so he was able to push it. And when he got it partway across the room, he realized that the bookcase and the chest of drawers were in the way. He saw at once that he couldn't move the bookcases with all the books on it, so he began taking the books off the shelves. The bottom shelf had very big, flat picture books from when he was little. Then he removed the other books and put them on the floor. And when all the books were off the bookcase, Ali Baba moved it across the room. He sneezed several times as he was carrying the case across the room, but at last he succeeded. He placed it in where the bed had been before, and the bed was still in the middle of the room because the chest of drawers was blocking it from the new location that Ali Baba had planned for it. He had to remove all the drawers from the chest before he could attempt to move it. All these efforts were making him very hot and thirsty. He remembered that his father had told him to drink lots of liquids. So he went into the kitchen to pour himself a drink. There was a container of orange juice, but as he reached for it, Ali Baba noticed the bottle of chocolate syrup. Chocolate milk would taste really good right now, he thought. So he removed both the bottle of chocolate syrup and the container of milk from the refrigerator. He took a glass from the cupboard, poured in about an inch of syrup into the bottom of the glass. The thick, dark brown syrup looked yummy. He decided to pour just a little more syrup into the glass to make the milk extra special chocolatey. And it occurred to Ali Baba that a whole glass of chocolate syrup would be liquid and would be good for him. So Ali Baba kept filling the glass with syrup, and then he lifted it to his lips. He knew his mother would never approve, but she didn't know it was really good. The first mouthful of chocolate syrup was wonderful. Ali Baba held the syrup in his mouth to savor the thick liquid. He swallowed and took another gulp. The second mouthful seemed less wonderful, and it was hard to swallow. And somehow Ali Baba didn't even want to swallow another one. He poured the rest of the syrup down the drain and rinsed out the glass. He filled it with water and drank it. He felt a little sick. Probably he should have settled for orange juice today, especially since he had a cold. Ali Baba went to his bedroom. His books were all over the floor, and the drawers from the chest were on the floor too. He pushed the bed into the new location, but when it was there, he realized something he'd never been aware of before. What do you think? The closet door was in the middle of the wall. And now the end of Ali Baba's bed was blocking the door. It would be impossible to ever open the closet door if the bed remained in this new place. That meant that Ali Baba would have to push everything back to the way it was before, and he didn't feel like doing that just now. He went into the living room and left the mess in his bedroom behind him. He turned on the television set. He rarely had a chance to watch daytime television. Perhaps there was a super program on right now. Unfortunately, the Berenstein set was not working too well lately. The picture bounced up and down in black and white. Ali Baba changed the channels. Sometimes one channel worked, even when another one didn't. However, although Ali Baba switched the dial from one channel to another, none of them worked very well today. Perhaps he could adjust one of the buttons in the back of the machine. Uh-oh. He turned one of the switches in the back and waited to see if the picture improved, and it didn't. But the program was a rerun of one of Ali Baba's favorite shows. And even though he knew just what was going to happen, he sat down to watch. It was a little disconcerting having to watch the picture bounce up and down and up and down. But Ali Baba wanted to hear his favorite exchange toward the end of the show, when the actor pretended to speak French and made up a lot of nonsense words. He thought he must have seen the show at least a half a dozen times over the past couple of years, and every time he found the ending hilariously funny. The wobbly picture on the screen began to hurt Ali Baba's eyes, and just as the actor was about to be in his phony French, the telephone rang. Ali Baba went to answer it, and it was his mother checking to make sure that everything was all right. "Our TV is the one that's really sick," Ali Baba complained. He was annoyed that he'd missed his favorite part of the show. He went back to the living room, turned off the set, and went into his bedroom. The mess was not inviting. Ali Baba turned away and went toward the kitchen. His head was aching, and his stomach didn't feel too great either. Still, once in the kitchen, he remembered the frankfurter in the refrigerator. Maybe he'd feel better if he ate his lunch. There he is, trying to watch the TV as the picture bounces up and down and up and down. While he filled a small pot with water and put the frankfurter inside, he took a slice of whole wheat bread out of the refrigerator. Too bad his mother didn't have any buns. He got the jar of mustard from the shelf in the refrigerator, and then he took a couple of cherry tomatoes too. When the water boiled and the frankfurter was cooked, Ali Baba turned off the stove. He stabbed the frankfurter with a fork and put it in the center of the slice of bread. He spread a thick layer of mustard on the frank and folded the bread in half, and he took a big bite. It tasted pretty good. He guessed he was a better cook than he realized. However, when he finished eating the frankfurter and bread and the cherry tomatoes, he realized that his stomach still felt bad. His head was still bothering him too, and his throat felt scratchier than ever. So I'm going to stop right here. I love you.